Good morning. What do you guys want to talk about? Okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. So this is our, once a year we do a Q&A service, and it's a great opportunity for me to hear what's really on your mind and in your heart. If you have any questions about something that I've spoken about or a unity principle or what unity believes, you can ask me that. If you have actually a favorite unity principle that you'd like to share with everyone else, something that really opens your heart, you can write that down as well. And what I'll do is we'll go, and if you're online, you can go to our website, unitypaloalto.org/questions, question, singular, and fill out a form, and that will bring me to my email. So I'll answer as many questions as I can today. And usually I get through, 4, 5, 6, because I'm a minister and we just can't shut up. But besides that, what we'll do is I'll go through as many as possible, and then I'll continue to answer the questions in the following weeks. So all of your questions will be answered at some point in time. Is that fair? All right. First question. So first off, a favorite principle, to walk the talk. Principle number 5. Wonderful. Yeah, it doesn't happen unless you put it into practice. It's one thing to hear about it and know it in your head, but until you put it into practice and walk the talk, it's all words. So that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Are you getting support you need to maintain our vibrant church? I think I am. I really do. It's very interesting because when you come at it from a perspective of how most people think about, or how a lot of us think about it, it's a very spiritual term that we ministers use. It's called butts and seats. Sorry, that's just for ministers. I wasn't supposed to tell people that. But you're right. So when you look around and think, well, there's not that many people here, but what you don't realize is that we have another third who are on our live stream. And then there's another third who watch us in the first week. So, look at what you have and what's here, and then look at it from the perspective of, triple that, and that's where we're at, really, as a community, because this is really about a spiritual community. And I think, we're creating something new. So we don't need the same things that we needed or we had before, but we have a fantastic greeter team, a group of people who are here to greet each other, to greet us when we arrive. We have a fantastic hospitality team who's willing to get here early to set up our hospitality. And you're all welcome to bring in food, prepped, ready to set on the table. And when you leave, take everything home with you, because we don't store it, we don't clean it. But you can bring it. And we have a great bookstore team that helps us keep our bookstore open. If you'd like to volunteer for any of those teams, you're welcome to. And really, it's about community. So it's like, well, what's next? What next as a community do we want to create? Do we want to do more inreach? Do we want to do more outreach? How do we want to, expand and as we navigate these new times? But for me personally, I feel like I have enough support. I'm doing a lot. And some people think I'm doing too much, right, Ian? Just let go. Yeah, thumbs up. Let go of the technology. Stop playing with his digital soundboard. Whatever. I'm a minister. How do you explain unity to people who have never heard of it or think it's the same as being Unitarian? And Unitarian is very often confused because of the name similarities things. But we're pretty different, I think, anyways, of what I know about Unitarian. But what I talk about is really, our 5 principles. What is unity all about? Well, we believe that there's one presence and one power. That's it. There's only one presence and one power, God. There's not a second presence or power that some call the devil or Satan. There's just one presence and power. And that leads to the question, well, what about evil? Well, sure, evil, this isn't on the card, but we'll get to that, I'm sure. Evil is simply us, acting poorly, forgetting that one presence and power, forgetting that the things that we do to ourselves and to each other, we do to the whole of humanity. Right? We're the ones who are creating this sense of chaos as human beings. But when we get back to that idea that there's only one presence and one power, and that it's within you and as you and it flows through you, you're never outside of it. It's like a fish trying to figure out where the water is. It's just all around, and it's who you are. And when we start to come from that perspective, then, we start to live better lives. We start to do life better. We start to treat each other better. So for me, it's really about those 5 principles. And the second principle is that I am consciousness. That consciousness that you might call it the Buddha mind. You might call it the Christ consciousness. It's that lesson that was taught to us that these things that I do in this consciousness, you will do. You are the light of the world. You're it. So start shining. And that third principle is the law of mind action, that the things that we think about and give great attention to, that's the lens through which we see the world. And so when we align our thoughts, our words, and our actions with that power of love, then we're expressing and creating that in our world. So for me, those 5 principles are really how I explain unity. And, we believe in the teachings that were attributed to Jesus, as Jesus is a master teacher, as Buddha was a master teacher, as Lao Tzu, and as all of the luminaries that are out there, we can pull from them because at the core are the same principles, I believe, the common human principles. Let's go online. How do we apply the 5 principles to the current events like Roe versus Wade, like gun control, like the war in the Ukraine? How do we apply our 5 principles? How do we apply principles in this situation? I'm not going to make light of any of those situations, but it's the same way that we apply the principles in any upset, in any time we feel like there's evil being done to us, anytime we feel like, something's against us. It's all there for us to learn and grow and to become better human beings. So how do you apply the principles in daily life is really what this comes down to. I think so often we look at this idea in our mission, our vision statement, right? Centered in God, we co-create a world that works for all. Centered in spirit, centered in that energy, we are co-creating. That's just the way it works. That's the law. That's how it works. It's that works for all part that we need a little work at. And it's that works at all part that where we need to be able to hear each other and understand where each other's coming from so that we can find common ground and then move forward. So often we think about it, we think about it as, well, I'm going to pray for this and everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be better. But the prayer is that mental capacity, and then we have to move our feet so that we can create the world, co-create the world with that energy that we want to see. Be that love and that peace and that harmony that we want to see in the world. And step forward for ideas and thoughts that you think are important to help us move in that direction. So it really comes back to that principle. Seek first that consciousness. Seek first that understanding that God is working through you, as you. And then walk, move your feet. Make it so. Where it's you that creates that. How do you see the unity principles intersecting with the current political environment and our countries? Well, so we just touched on that a little bit, but I think the key to remember here is that the principles, what unity likes to call them, is spiritual law. They work, period. The law of mind action works, period. So what are you putting your thoughts, energy, and ideas at? What energy are you putting into it? What thoughts and ideas are you creating? That's why, we're such creative beings and so powerful, is that we have the choice to create thoughts that are centered around love and harmony and compassion. So the political environment, you can talk about it today, you could talk about it 20 years ago, you could talk about it 20 years in the future. The political environment is going to be the political environment because there's human beings involved in it. And when we're not coming from that center, that core, then it's going to be difficult. So again, it's getting grounded in your principles, getting grounded in spirit, getting grounded in love, and allowing that inner voice to guide you in how you live your life and how you move through the world and create the world that we're in. Because we're creating it. You know, that's the collective consciousness. That's the collective individual minds that we all are. But the more we center on that idea within us, the more we will lift the consciousness of humanity, I think. Two-part question. What is UPA doing to help increase membership? Could every member help by inviting a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, or at least one per month? At least once per month. Yeah. So UPA, what are you doing to increase membership? Anybody have an answer? So yeah, I love the question because it's not to me, it's to UPA. And when someone says, what is the church doing? Well, you're the church. What's the spiritual center doing? Well, you're the spiritual center of this organization, right? I'm here, and what we're doing as an organization is we've got a lot of energy pumped into social media to take the messages that we have and to spread them around so that the people who will resonate with them, right, those who have ears to hear, will find them and will look online and see what are we all about. Who might, watch a service and see what are we all about. Who might come just to check us out. And of course, word of mouth is always the best way to do it. Having raving fans is really the only way for any organization to thrive. So let's have raving fans. If you're a fan, rave. And I think that's the lesson, that idea of, you're the light of the world, so shine. I think people will be attracted to you when you are living the principles, and all of a sudden you realize that you have the answers within you to overcome whatever is challenging you, that you have the strength and you have spiritual tools that we can give you to practice to help lift you up, so that when you're moving in the world and experiencing and expressing your beautiful, unique expression of it, people see that and really say, gosh, how can I get some of that? That's what we're really all about, because at the end of the day, we're not here to fill butts and seats. At the end of the day, we're here to transform lives, to help people discover that power, that spiritual nature within them, and to create that in their world every day, in every way. What spiritual principles can I use to remind myself not to put too much pressure on myself? I think, a great spiritual tool, it's called the principle of non-resistance. Right? It's a practice of non-resistance. It's what is showing up in life is showing up. So often what shows up in life, we then turn on ourselves. We blame, shame, and guilt ourselves into oblivion, because it's like, well, why is this happening to me, right? We're in our victim consciousness. This is all happening to me. So the principles of non-resistance is like, well, it just is. Here's a situation. Instead of judging it as right, wrong, or good or bad, or hurtful or harmful, it's just like, okay, here's the situation. Now, how can I grow from it? How can I live, be in it and not be diminished by it? We teach a great class, the Q class, the quantum living class. It's all about looking at our shadow side, because we all have a shadow side, right? That I used to call it my evil twin Skippy, but people didn't like the word evil, so my shadow twin Skippy, right? When Skippy comes out, it's like, well, that's not my true self. That's John who's been triggered. That's it. And the quicker the tools that I have, or the quicker I can recover from that and get back to that John as, divine, John as a loving being, John as faith, and the quicker I can be in the situation and not feel diminished by it. So it's really, we teach a lot of principle, a lot of practices to help us get back to that one idea, those two ideas, that there's only one presence and one power, And that I am consciousness, that's you expressing that one presence and power. So it's putting it into practice. It's doing the work. And what I have found, and what my family has found, is that I'm much easier to get along with. So they tell me. From online, we say that God is all good, but there's also so much bad in the world. For example, people hurting each other in various ways. If there is no spot where God is not, how can we say that God is all good if God is also present in these bad beings? So, let's take a moment to think about the idea of judgment, right? Because we're judging each other. That's what we do. We're judging beings. We're very creative and we're very judgmental. And judgment's not bad. Judgment can be good, right? Don't put your hand in a fire. Pretty good judgment. Pretty good wisdom there. When we try to hold our own model of good or bad against someone else, right, we're judging the other person. And what does that, you can hear it in the question, what does that create within you when you're saying, oh, that person is so bad? How do you feel inside? Anybody? Yucky, angry. A little louder. Separate. Yeah, you feel separate from God. Forget about the other person. Don't care about them. But all of a sudden, I am struggling. The deep spiritual principle goes back to Genesis when we're talking about, we know the story, right? Adam and Eve picks something from the tree. What does she pick from the tree? An apple. Wrong. That's what we like to say because it's easy to draw a picture of it. It's the knowledge of good and evil. It's the ability to judge good and evil. And when we start to judge as good and evil, then all of a sudden we're now in a dualistic thinking. We're now in victim-victor consciousness. We're now separate from God. There's no chance that God can get in there because we're looking at it as good or bad. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to look at a murderer and say, okay, that person's a good person. The acts were not good. We as a society agree with that. And at the same time, if I'm holding that idea of that person is so evil, then what is it doing to me? The law of mind action, what am I creating in my life? Evil. I'm creating a sense of evil. I'm creating a sense of anger. I can feel it in my stomach. That's why forgiveness is such a powerful and important process. Because forgiveness is not saying, hey, it's okay, go ahead and kill people. No, forgiveness is letting go of the power that has over you. We all agree that killing people is not good. Some might argue that under certain circumstances, it's good. So the idea of good and bad, instead of trying to look at people as good or bad, certainly we don't agree with everybody. Otherwise, you'd all be listening to me, and I can't stand listening to myself speak. No one would be here. Anyway, so, it's really looking at, if I'm judging someone as bad, as evil, am I judging that person as evil? And if so, how is that reflected from me? Because whatever we see out there is really a reflection of what we're experiencing in here. So sometimes we see something, right, that something someone does, let's not even call it evil, just annoyance, right? Leaving the toilet seat up or down or whatever. It's an annoyance, leaving the socks in the middle of the house instead of in the hamper. Those kids. Something, a little trigger that annoys us. That's a reflection of something about us. A reflection about something about us that we can heal. So that when we heal that, it's no big deal. Hey, there's socks in the middle of the floor. Ethan, would you please pick up your socks? Put them in the hamper. No big whoop. Now, it gets harder when we look at it as worse. It gets harder when the relationships are more important to us. Oh my gosh, it's already 1:45, right? It gets harder when the relationships are really important. But if we come from that perspective of there's only one presence and power that's everywhere present, God is good is the saying because we're looking at it from the perspective of God is harmony, God is love. But when we look at something and say, well, that's evil, inside of that good, how can that be? That's us forgetting that we're good, that we are love, that we are light. That's us forgetting that. And we all do that at some point in time. And can you have self-compassion for yourself? Can you have self-forgiveness for yourself? And at some point, you'll need to have forgiveness for other people. Otherwise, it will eat you up inside. Unforgiveness is, what's the saying? It's like, poison. Unforgiveness is poison, but you're not poisoning the other person, you're poisoning. Anyways, I butchered that one. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. It really, it's an inner thing. And it creates a sense of disease within you. So the best thing to do is go back to principle. And you may not agree with what's happening, but come at it from a place of love, a place of creating harmony in the world, a place of doing good in the world. You know, God is good. God is love. God is harmony. Spirit is the energy through which we experience God. We might experience God as that loving presence that's with us and embracing us. We might experience it as that divine intelligence in the universe that holds everything together. I love how Maya Angelou put it. You know, God is love. It's like the harmony that holds the stars in the universe. It just is. And it's us forgetting that creates the suffering in the world. So I think that's it. I only have 84 more questions. And a couple there. So here's what I'll do, because you all want to go home on time, right? Or you want to stay for another hour? Deborah says no, she has to leave. Sorry. What I'm going to do is go through the rest of the John, you were a blessing to the world. Okay. Oh, and I'm in my little pretend McLaren. There's another question. I'm going to go through all the questions. Maybe I'll make a video and put it online. I'll definitely put it into the talks coming up, because this is what we really need to be talking about, right? This is what gets us from where our stuckness is and opens us up to that creative essence that's within us, that creative energy, that love, that harmony, that's there waiting to be expressed. That's the truth of who you are. Even though I sometimes call you a spiritual knucklehead. Not you, of course, those other people. But we all have those sides to us, that shadow Skippy that comes out every once in a while. But the truth of who you are is that you're a powerful, sparkling, energetic, beautiful person, regardless of what category that we put ourselves in. Right? We're open and welcoming to people from all walks of life. And dare I say, even all religions. Now, I don't always agree with the anger and hatred that comes out of some, but there's a core. At the core of it is practicing love. Loving God, loving Spirit, loving whatever you want to call it, but allowing that to be your guide. And how you show up in the world makes it amazing. We talk about all the bad things. There are great things that you all do. Anybody here done a good thing lately? Oh, come on. In the last month, in the last year. Yeah, we are creative beings. And we're here to do more of that. Centered, poised, presence, powerful.